Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Today we have a very special guest with us, Scott F. Mason, better known to many as the Honorary Understudy for Dame Edna. As many of you know, the world recently lost a beloved performer, Barry Humphries, who passed away last week. Barry was an Australian actor and comedian, best known for his character Dame Edna Everage, a sharp-tongued housewife and talk show host. Dame Edna, with her lilac-colored hair, cat-eye glasses, and love for gladiolus flowers, is a beloved character worldwide, and her trademark greeting, "Hello, possums," will never be forgotten. But that's not all we're talking about today. We're also going to dive into Scott's own career and journey as an entertainer. From performing on the Las Vegas Strip to working with some of the biggest names in the industry, Scott has seen and done it all. So sit back, relax, and get ready for a fantastic episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends. So hello, Scott, or maybe I should say, hello, possum.
Well, hello, possum, back to you, Jordan. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a real treat.
Oh my goodness, it's very much a treat for me. I just want to say, so I first became aware of your talents last month. So I was back home in New York, and my friend Sojourner and I were looking for something to do, and she says, let's go to a cabaret. So we started looking through like the listings, and we're looking to see what's going on at the Duplex. We're looking to see what's going on at the Carlisle. We're looking to see what's going on at Don't Tell Mama. And we came across your show, which was happening that evening. And we're like, we love Dame Edna. This will be fun. And we had an absolute blast. And I wanted to introduce myself and compliment you after the show. But you were standing like outside of the theater, like by the steps, or the room by the step, and you were surrounded by like all these people. And I don't do lines anymore. At least that's what I tell my sober coach. And so I figured, well, the industry's small. I'm sure we'll bump into each other at some point in time, and I can tell you what a wonderful time I had. And then last week, when Barry Humphries died, I woke up and the TV was on, and BBC News was reporting it. And I called and I woke up Jose, and I said, "Oh my goodness, Barry Humphries died." And Dame Edna has been on my mind for like the last 4 weeks because I just saw this show. You need to contact Scott Mason because I want to know this guy and want to know what he's all about. And so now we're here. So that's a very long-winded way of me saying, welcome, Scott. And thank you so much for a very, very wonderful evening of entertainment.
Well, thank God, Jordan, that you liked it. I could have, if I had failed miserably, we might not be having this conversation.
Indeed. So I feel like I've been talking. So I have 2 questions for you, and I'll let you take the floor. So actually, I guess it's 3 questions. So for how long have you been doing Dame Edna? How did you start doing Dame Edna? And how the hell did you become the honorary understudy for Dame Edna?
Well, Jordan, those are 3 wonderful questions that I can answer sort of in my own crazy journey, which when you were talking about the great Sir Barry Humphries, of course, being the honorary understudy and just first becoming an impersonator of the character Dame Edna, I've done a lot of research. And Barry Humphries, when he first did Dame Edna in a college skit, and that was supposed to be the end of it. He never planned to have Dame Edna be what he became famous for, because he had many, many, many talents and other characters he did, but Dame Edna was the one. And that's sort of how my journey started, because I did theater. I was the kid, I think you were too, Jordan, just from your personality. I was the kid on the block who made other kids do shows in the backyard. And
100%.
I think everybody started that way. So So I did theater. I was a theater minor in college. I wrote my first couple of plays in college. So my theatrical experience was being a playwright, an actor, a director, and I did that all through school, college, and then I am a Cancerian by birth, so I am not a big risk taker, and I lived in Delaware. I'd gone to University of Delaware. I didn't know what I was going to do. There was no internet back then, no social media, no TikTok, anywhere to post yourself. So I took the safe route and I got a master's degree in college counseling, and I started working in higher education at the University of Delaware, where I was for 30 years. Meanwhile, during that time, I continued doing theater regionally and community theater. I did a couple of original musicals with my then musical partner, Joyce Stoner. And we actually did, back in the 90s, two what we called mini musicals at Don't Tell Mamas. And then, just dabbled in everything, trying to do that thing that got me out there, that got me skyrocketed to be able to quit the university and go do theater full time. Well, that never happened. It was just always an avocation. And during that time, there was a friend who would have an annual theatrical Halloween party and always had some sort of rules or regulations around what you would wear to the famous annual Halloween party. So this one year, his rule was you had to come as a TV celebrity, but opposite gender.
Okay.
So I've grown up seeing Dame Edna. This is a guilty pleasure. In high school and shortly after, I was always watching the late cable version of the imported Benny Hill show, and I thought Benny Hill was amazing.
Wasn't that so wonderful? I used to watch that as a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I didn't even know that it was an hour long and it was in England. I was so young and naive. And then a couple of years, they followed the Benny Hill show with the Dame Edna Experience, which was her TV show where she was a talk show host akin to like Johnny Carson or Jay Leno, et cetera. And I thought, wow, this is interesting and funny. But it wasn't like I was a huge fan. It was there. I watched it and I thought this was funny. So now back to the Halloween party, which was 2003. And I was struggling 11th hour. What am I going to wear to this costume party? And I thought, I was thinking opposite gender. Who am I going to be? So I thought, oh, Dame Edna. And I went to the costume closet at the local theater and grabbed this sequin dress, and I got a white wig and spray painted it pink. Jordan, the costume, I will never even show pictures because it was horrible. It really did not do the true Dame justice. So go to this Halloween party, and then he and his wife would go around and choose the top 3 outfits, so to speak, or costumes. And he chose me as one of the finalists. And what he would do with the finalists is he would act like James Lipton, the famous James Lipton, and interview you as sort of entertainment for the party. And so I did the voice, and I did Dame Edna-esque stuff. And people after that, and I think I got the prize, whatever it was, a bottle of wine or something. And people were coming up to me saying, "Oh my God, you sound just like her, and you should do this." And I thought, oh, whatever. So at the time, I was involved with it still am, a local community theater here in Newark, the Chapel Street Players, and they always have a curtain speech before the show. And there was a comedy show, and the director, who was a friend of mine, said, "Hey, why don't we change things up? And why don't you do Dame Edna and do the curtain speech, the welcome speech?" So I did that, and the audience went nuts. And people came up to me and said, "Oh, why don't you do a show?" So by 2004, 5-ish, I started doing basically sort of like the Dame Edna average experience. I started doing a talk show, and I had on local celebrities from the Jersey area, PA, Maryland, in this tri-state area around Delaware. And then it just took off. And then I started getting requests to do this fundraiser in New Jersey and da-da-da-da. And then I started perfecting the costume and perfecting the glasses and got a Dame Edna real purple wig, yada, yada, yada. So fast forward to, again, never, Jordan, did I think this was my path. Never did I think I was going to have a closet full of sequin dresses and boas and glasses and fake jewelry. And so 2008, a friend of mine from the theater, he is a band. He was in a band. He was a singer, rock singer. And once in a while, he would, in his band act, he would impersonate different famous rock stars, and one of which was Gene Simmons from Kiss. And he would dress up like Gene Simmons, look just like him. His wife made the outfit. It was a spitting image of the 80s Gene Simmons, 70s, 80s Gene Simmons doing Kiss. And he had learned, I guess, because of doing this Gene Simmons stuff, that there was actually, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Jordan, but there was, or your listeners, there were actually impersonator conventions, one of which at the time was happening in Las Vegas, called the Celebrity Impersonator Convention. And they also
it does what it says on the side of the tin, like this is very the Celebrity Impersonator Convention.
Yeah. So I thought, what is this? So I looked into it, and it was at a hotel in Vegas. I'd never been to Vegas. And so I said, I dragged a couple of friends along because I thought, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. So we went, I signed up for the first time showcase, which was for anybody who had not been at this convention, I guess, or was just starting out. So I had 3 to 4 minutes to do my bit. And I'm in a room full of people who look like Chevy Chase and Cher and Madonna and Robin Williams, and it was just surreal. And then I did my bit, and people went nuts. And these other impersonators came up to me and they said, "You're so funny. This is great. Welcome." They were just very gracious to me. And then a producer of another convention, one's not enough when it comes to the world of impersonators, Jordan. So there was another convention in Orlando, Florida, led by Greg Thompson, and it's still going, called the Sunburst Convention. So summer, he said, "Why don't you come to this convention? You're really great. You're really funny. I want you to come to my convention." So then I packed my bags in the summer of 2008 and went to Orlando. And that was even bigger. And so many people, I was so overwhelmed. And then that year, they have their own awards. And that year, I won Funniest Male at the convention. So I felt, wow, I've made the big time, Jordan. I'm getting recognized by my peers as the funniest male amongst all these different impersonators. It was quite an honor. The following year, this film crew came in, documentary film crew. They were making a short subject documentary about the impersonator industry. And a lot of my fellow peers were skittish to be interviewed because apparently the year before I arrived, the Jay Leno show had sent some sort of person to interview and film. And of course, everybody was excited about it because it was Jay Leno, was going to be on the Tonight Show. But once I guess they showed the video clips of the person he sent to interview, he mocked the whole thing. He mocked the industry. He mocked the people. So they were burned by that. And so no one wanted to be interviewed by this film group. Well, I didn't know that history until after the fact. And I'm thinking, hey, I can be in a short subject documentary. Here's another possibility to spread my wings. So I became me and an Elvis, one of thousands, an Elvis impersonator that was there. We were the highlight of the film. And then it went on to win all these awards for short subject documentary films. I never knew there were so many awards out there for that kind of thing. So I ended up being in DC for a promotion of the film. So things were just sort of going boom, 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 boom. Then fast forward to 2009, there's a huge arts venue here in Wilmington, Delaware called The Grand, which has had all kinds of touring famous people, Reba McEntire, bands, everybody. And they were doing a talent show, and there was different parts. There was one night was going to be comedy, one night was going to be spoken word, one night was singing. So I said, what the heck, let me try the comedy show. There were comedians from Philadelphia and New York and DC. And shockingly, Jordan, I won the comic contest. And then it went on, and then they had a big grand contest. And if you won the big, where they had the winner of the comedian, the winner of the singer, the winner of the spoken word, they had this grand contest, and whoever won that contest was going to get some money, and they were going to get their own show at the Grand.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, exactly. Well, at one point, I'm in the waiting room, and there was a little girl, just gorgeous, little precious, like she walked out of a Disney film. Little girl, maybe 7 or 8, and she was singing, of course, something like "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow" or some typical kid song, and she sounded angelic. And I thought, okay, there's no way that an impersonator of a character that is somebody else's creation is going to win this thing against this little girl. Well, I was wrong and I won.
Ha! Take that, little girl. I don't like kids, so good. Good on
Yeah.
you.
So I know
It's
this
like
has
when that
been.
little girl was Jackie Evancho. Like,
So I know this has been a very long-winded answer, so I apologize, but it's just sort of
no, I'm fascinated.
it's sort of this weird turn a different corner, and my life would have been very different. And so the point
But
of
what's so
mentioning,
funny, not to interrupt you, but
go
what I'm
ahead.
hearing is sort of how Dame Edna chose Barry Humphries, but it sounds like Dame Edna chose Scott F. Mason as well.
Yeah, that's again, there are these parallels to Barry's life with the dame who, of course, he created, but she is such her own entity. I brought the talent contest up because that was very significant, not because I won, but had I not done it, what happened there, because of the acts they bring in there, touring Broadway, that kind of thing, they have equity staff and union staff. And there was an equity stage manager, very nice. I can't remember her name. I wish I could because I owe a lot to her. She was the stage manager for the grand finale thing. And months later, Jordan, I mean, it might have almost been a year later, practically, she found me at my job at the university because she subscribed to the Broadway Playbill magazine.
Okay.
And she saw an ad in Playbill for Dame Edna's honorary understudy contest. And she found me. I think she either called me and then she emailed me and said, I saw this and I thought of you. And I thought, oh my God. And this was February 2010. And I thought, I have to do this. I can't believe this is happening. Because again, I didn't have Dame Edna and Barry Humphries plastered all over my house in, shrines. I didn't stalk Barry Humphries or Dame Edna and what they were doing. I did try to find if they were doing a tour in the States, and I saw one of her touring shows. But
Yeah, it was just something you did and you had fun with, and you did it
yeah,
when you did it, and then when you weren't, you were working or doing whatever you were doing otherwise.
yeah, exactly. You got it, Jordan. So I looked up this contest, and Barry Humphries, Dame Edna, they were opening a new show on Broadway called All About Me, which is interesting because the movie that came out around the same time, that documentary, was called Just About Famous, and here's All About Me. So they had about, in the middle. It was just freaky.
Yeah.
One of those freaky things. I'm thinking, okay, this is sort of an omen. So I went to do the audition, and this was a publicity stunt for this show that they were going to open on Broadway.
Where did it take place? Like, I'm picturing like a bunch of Dame Ednas sitting in Schubert Alley.
Well, I forget. I should have pulled the playbill before we talked, but it's buried somewhere. But it was at a legit Broadway theater. And exactly what you said. I walk in, dressed as the dame. Luckily, I found a little hotel across the street. Come out, dressed as the dame, walk across the street, go in this theater, and here's all these Dame Edna people.
I'm picturing like people sitting like having lunch on the sidewalk, and there's just like 50 Dame Ednas walking down the street, like wondering, like I can only imagine like what's going on in like the people watchers' heads.
And of course, I mean, I think there was about a little over a dozen, and some were very good looking and doing it justice. And then there was one that I thought, oh my God, this looks like my Halloween costume. Like, this person just needs to go home. And then there was one, because you're so into the arts, you may remember this, but I think you might be young. So back in the day when Hollywood Squares was famous, do you remember that show, Hollywood Squares?
Yes, I do.
there was a few seasons in its original run where one of the corner squares it was a puppeteer, a guy, and he had a puppet called Madam. It was like
Waylon and Madam.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it wasn't Waylon that was there, but it was the guy, and he had somehow purchased the Madam puppet or made one of his own, but he made the Madam puppet look, which is not a stretch, look like Dame Edna with purple hair and these little glasses. And that was one of the contestants. this Madam
Very
version.
clever.
It was very clever. And I thought, ooh, it's not like this person who wins. They had told us we would be meeting with Barry. We would have access. You would get free show tickets to the show. We would be actually listed, which I am, you'd be listed in the playbill as the dame's official honorary understudy. But it wasn't like, obviously, if Barry Humphries twisted his ankle, that I would be going on with Michael Feinstein to play this role, because
Right.
the audience would go and riot. So we're sitting there, and we each had to get up, and we had to perform a 3 to 4 minute bit, maybe 5. And it was Michael Feinstein himself sitting there. Michael Musto, the famous Village Voice critic, was there. There was somebody from CBS New York News, and Barry Humphries. Well, when we first started out, Barry Humphries wasn't there. He was late, caught in traffic. So they started, and it was, again, serendipitous because I had not gone on. So almost all the people had gone on except for me and maybe 2 others. And then Barry Humphries arrived. So, of course, everybody broke into applause, and Barry Humphries got up and he welcomed us, and he was not dressed as the Dame, he was Barry, and he was very tickled and impressed that there was these impersonators. And then we picked up where we had stopped, and he wanted to see all the people again. So each of the persons did a shorter version of what they had already done. And then it got to this other person, and then me in the mix. And then the second phase, so it was very nerve-wracking, Jordan, as you can imagine, because I really wanted to win. And we're just sitting in the house, and the people, they all take a break and go off somewhere, and they come back.
Let's just take a break, though, because that's like intense. You come up to New York, because I remember when this show was running. So you come up to New York, you're sitting here on stage at the Schubert Theater. Michael Musto is standing there. I can only, you guys are probably like, holy moly.
Yeah, well, yes, Jordan. I mean, it was surreal. But I had to take off from work and buy a train ticket and a hotel, and I was just shocked. So.
Can I ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but I'm so curious, the people in your life back in Delaware, when were they totally supportive when you're like, oh yes, I'm going to New York, I'm going to play Dame Edna on Broadway? Were they looking at you like, what the hell is this? Is he on something? Or were they like, yeah, go do it, Scott?
I think they were very supportive. People, because really, I said that theater was an avocation while I had a full-time job, but it was almost like a second full-time job, Jordan. After work, every night, I was directing a show at one theater, acting in a show at another theater. I don't, now that I'm older, I don't even know how, I could never do that. It was the energy of a 20, 30, 40 something. And yeah. I don't even remember cooking dinners. I was never home. I was, if I wasn't at work, I was at a theatrical venue, or I was going to New York to see a show, or I was sending out scripts, or what have you. The life of a starving artist. But I wasn't starving because I had, thank God, a full-time job. So let's finish the talent show. They had us get up. There was finalists, I think 4 or 5, and I was one of them. And then Barry Humphries, basically, we had to improvise, and Barry Humphries, we were on stage, and Barry Humphries from the audience was asking us questions about the Dame. And I don't even remember half the questions or what I said, but I know Barry Humphries.
Like, what type of questions? Would she do this? Or questions about her biography? Or
yeah, because Barry Humphries, as Dame Edna, Barry has created, there's quite the Dame Edna character, which is a lot in the fake biography that he wrote of Dame Edna. There's a son, and there's 2 sons and 2 daughters, and the son, Kenny, it's all this innuendo about Kenny being gay, but she doesn't know it because Kenny makes her dresses, and Kenny does her makeup, and Kenny does all these stereotypical gay things, but Dame's waiting for him to find the right woman, but he only goes to leather bars. So there's all this funny innuendo about her children and her dead husband who died of a prostate murmur, and just this whole thing. Well, luckily, because of doing the impersonation for several years, 5 or so years beforehand, and going to the conventions and wanting to perfect the character, because I didn't know what to expect at these conventions, I had studied all that. So when Barry was asking my Dame, tell me about your son, I was able to pull her humor, Barry's humor, and say it. So Barry was laughing, and then they sat us all back down in the audience, and they said, "Here's the second runner-up, wasn't me. Here's the first runner-up, wasn't me, and the honorary understudy is Scott F. Mason." That was. Well, I probably got teary. I may have screamed. There was Broadway World or Broadway something, one of the online TV, whatever shows, they were there. And there's a video clip of my YouTube pages there. I was interviewed. Barry Humphries talked to me, blah, 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 blah. And then that was over. They sent us all out, and I called people at home and screamed. And one of my best friends, Bettina Williams, who does Whoopi Goldberg, I called her, and she was ecstatic. And I was overwhelmed. And then I got to sit, because I'm ballsy this way. I had 2 hours or so to kill before my train back to Delaware. So I wandered back into the theater. They were in rehearsal, and I sat in the auditorium like I belonged there and watched Barry and Michael do their shtick for the show, watch the costumers freaking out because Michael Feinstein is so short compared to Barry Humphries. So they were giving Michael lifts in his shoes, like 3-inch heels, but they wanted to hide them. So the costumer was on stage trying to adjust his pants to hide the lifts. It was just fantastic because I do theater, watch this process and go, wow, Broadway is no different than doing community theater. It's just bigger money and bigger people.
That's the secret. You weren't supposed to say that on air. Damn it, Scott.
Darn it. I've shot myself, Jordan. So I sat there, and Barry Humphries came up to me and he said, hello. And I said, hi, Mr. Humphries. I said, you just chose me a little while ago as your honorary understudy. And he said, oh, yes. And he sat down next to me and he started talking to me. He goes, where are you from? And what do you do? And how did you end up impersonating me? And we just had this awesome conversation. And I have met, because I'm, again, kind of gutsy. When I would see a Broadway show, I'd go to the stage door. I'd write notes to actors I wanted to meet. So I've met a lot of different Broadway and sometimes film stars who are doing Broadway. And there are some nasty, nasty celebrities out there. And then there are some wonderful celebrities who don't act like they walk on water. And Barry Humphries is one of them. He was the kindest, generous of spirit person, celebrities that I've ever met. And we just chatted like we were old friends.
Oh, that's wonderful.
One of the nicest things from that conversation is I wanted to assure him, I said, just so you know, Mr. Humphries, when I impersonate Dame Edna, I write my own comedy material. I don't do what you do as the Dame. And he said, oh, my dear boy, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, oh, my dear boy, if you're going to impersonate the Dame, you need to do the Dame. And so now my show, which you saw, is a mixture of some of the original Dame Edna's material, as well as my own scripted or made up material. Now most of my show has evolved into just interacting with the audience and improvising with the audience, as you saw. So I got to see the show. I
think that's so cool, though. Like, not too many people are like, yes, steal my act, take my act, please.
Well, exactly, Jordan. With everything in the world with copyright, you can't sample my song and pay me money, and there's a lot. And that's why I'm saying he was so generous of spirit, because he wasn't threatened at all. He was pleased. He just, again, a wonderful man. And so his passing was very hard for me. And then what happened was I saw the show in previews. And then, unfortunately, if you saw the show, and I'm not surprised, because I saw the show and I thought to myself, Barry was wonderful. Michael Feinstein is wonderful. But watching Dame Edna and Michael Feinstein, I thought, what producers sat at lunch in Midtown and said, hey, let's get Dame Edna and Michael Feinstein. They must have been drunk on martinis, because it was the strangest combination of performers, gifted and talented performers, but it just didn't work. So the show, unfortunately, I think closed less than a month after it opened. It did not last long at all.
Uh-huh.
which is unfortunate because I had gotten a call. This was all part of this publicity stunt of the quote honorary understudy. I was supposed to go on, had the train ticket. That it was a Wednesday, and I was supposed to go to the Today Show, and both of us, Barry as Dame, me as Dame, were supposed to show up, and I guess they were going to make a bit out of it to promote the show. Well,
Yeah.
I'm watching the Sunday morning news, the Sunday whatever it's called, early Sunday thing, because I knew they were going to put the show and Dame Edna on that program to promote the show. And during the interview, which was live, Dame Edna told the interviewer that the show was closing that day. So I was like, oh, are you kidding me? So of course, Monday I got a call from NBC Today Show saying we're not having you on because the show's been canceled. I thought,
Damn, damn, damn.
that was the only time in this whole crazy journey that something just didn't click. But getting that honor and meeting Barry, and then on Barry's farewell tour, I got to work with, meet with him and hang out with him again, and it was wonderful. And then I kept doing it. And then 2019, I had 30 years of doing University of Delaware work, and because I had 30 years, even though I wasn't that old, I was eligible to get retirement with full medical benefits, not my 401, of course, because unless I wanted to take it with penalty, but I could retire and have medical benefits, which of course everybody needs. So I thought, you know what the heck? I've spent 30 years doing both worlds. I'm going to leave this job and a steady paycheck, and I'm going to go do all my artistic stuff full time. So I got my business license, everything arranged, my website, business cards, the whole shebang by February of 2020. And then you know what happened in March 2020?
We do.
We all do. The entire world does.
You're like, everything is going to be wonderful. And I, I know, I actually opened a show just before then here in Vegas, and then it happened.
Yeah,
So I totally understand.
yeah, and it just sucked. So I pivoted, and I learned how to do. I got an online studio thing set up. I don't want to promote it, and I started doing Dame
Why
shows.
not? Feel free to promote it. Or
Um,
you don't want anyone to see it? Is it like
no,
is it
no,
like
no,
that
no, no, no,
the
no,
first photo from your first time as the Dame?
no. I all the YouTube clips, all the videos I made and streamlined on YouTube and Facebook, they're there on my YouTube page. I had the name of this thing. It's a online. It's like Zoom, but it's not Zoom. It's another platform, and and I learned how. Bought a microphone and lights.
Oh, was this that? I remember because I was, here in Vegas when shutdown happened, and there was like a platform that like all of a sudden all the performers were using where you could like charge. I forget what it was called. Was it like that type of a thing? Was it
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all the singers and musicians were using? Is it like,
Right, right. It was one of many that because that's what performers did. Everybody was pivoting. So I learned how to do that, and I was very proud of myself because I didn't grow up in technology, and I'm sure my 17-year-old nephew could do it in a heartbeat. But I taught myself in quarantine how to do all these things, and I started doing daily 15-minute little segments and had guests, and I started doing full hour-long shows, and then I was asking for tips from Venmo and that kind of thing. And so that sort of sustained me. But final weird thing of the journey, Jordan, I promise, and you can ask me any other question. So because of COVID, I've lived since I started working for the university. I've lived in my home in Newark, Delaware, and I've had a neighbor across the street, Lita, who's wonderful. And I knew she had a son because she knew of my theatrical stuff. She came to shows. She knew I did the Dame. And she told me about her son, who was a playwright and an actor in New York. And I maybe met him once or twice if he came home for Christmas, kind of thing. Brief encounter. Well, Dan Ruth, he's an award-winning playwright, wrote a one-man show, which is a big hit, called Behind Bars, about his alcohol recovery. And because of COVID, like so many New Yorkers, he wasn't getting work as a waiter or a bartender or as an actor or a playwright. So he left Brooklyn and moved in during quarantine with his mother. So fast forward to this past summer, 2022, they invited me over. It was like a cold summer night, and they invited me over for a fire pit in the backyard. So we're sitting there talking, and Dan says to me, "Have you ever tried New York?" And I said, "Well, I was going to, but then this thing called COVID came." And so he said, "Well, I've won a MAC award. You know what MAC is?" I said, "No." He said, "The Manhattan Association of Cabaret Theaters. You should join MAC." He said, "You could win a bistro because you're so talented. I've seen your YouTube stuff. And I know this person who books Don't Tell Mama and my director, and you should really do this." So fast forward to fall 2022, I got booked at Don't Tell Mama, did my first three shows there in New York as the Dame, and it was people just loved it. And then I got told in January, it was not out publicly, but I was told that I won a Bistro Award for comedic characterization, and they wanted me to MC the Bistro Awards, which is a big thing. And
Oh, wow. That's amazing. No, that's fantastic.
yeah, so I felt bad because even my director, she's like, "You need," because I really didn't know much about it, Jordan. Because again, I though I went to Broadway shows all throughout my adulthood, I knew of Don't Tell Mamas because my friend and I did the shows, the musicals there in the 90s, but I was not a person who went to New York for long weekends and weeks and did the cabaret scene. So I had no idea how vast and just, I mean, it's almost as vast as Broadway. It's just a different genre, it's different venues, how vast the world of cabaret theater was. And so I was sort of going, okay, so I got a bistro. And my director said to me, Tanya Moberly, she said, "Scott," she said, "I've lived in New York." She's around my age. She's like, "I've lived in New York since the 80s, been a singer, a director, blah, blah, blah." She said, "I didn't win my first bistro till 2018 or 2014. And she said, "You come along and do three shows and you've won a bistro. You should be thrilled." And they've asked you to MC it, and haven't had an MC in years, probably because of COVID. But so it was really, again, Jordan, this unintended universe, fate, stars, God, serendipity, whatever you want to label it. I did the Bistro Awards. It was so amazing, so humbling. That was Monday. And then Tuesday, somebody posted to my Dame page on Facebook an article that Barry Humphries had been hospitalized. And I was like, "Oh, this is a bummer," after I just won this award. And then Saturday morning, I woke up early, Saturday, April 22nd, because I was to go do my last scheduled show at Don't Tell Mama. And my phone was exploding. I was like, "What the hell is going on?" And it was friends and family telling me that Barry Humphries had died. And so I got chilled. I'm getting chills telling you, because just how freaky that my last scheduled current show at Don't Tell Mama was going to be the night of the day Barry Humphries had died. And
I can I tell you, I thought about that because I texted Sojourner because I remember it was like a monthly residency.
yes,
And
yes.
I was like, I actually sent a text saying like, "Oh my God." And the Dame Edna understudy guy, his show is tonight. That is so, wow.
Yeah, because again, I thought to myself, all right, you couldn't die the night before or the day after. Not that he knew I had a show going on, but
Well, can I ask you something? Because here's one of the things that I thought, and this is probably going to make me sound so crass, but that's the business. Did that affect your ticket sales at all?
um,
Like,
I
did you have like a bump in people coming to see you or no?
I don't really, because I was charting, asking Tanya how are the sales going, and I don't think it really spiked the sales, but it was really hard for me. And it's funny because there's famous celebrities that I followed. I'm a big Star Trek person, and Leonard Nimoy died. I was like, "That's very sad." No more Spock. And Angela Lansbury died, and I love Angela Lansbury. But I was moved for a moment. But this is life, and I don't know them. They're a celebrity. But when I got the news of Barry, I felt like a family member, like my father had passed.
Yeah.
and I only really interacted with him 3 times, but I guess doing the character and studying his life, and people were reading articles about his family life and his 4 marriages and his 4 children and his alcoholism and his incarceration. I'm like, yeah, he's very interesting life. And so I was very emotional, and I thought, I just don't even know, should I do this show? Should I how how should I acknowledge the elephant in the room? Uh, so luckily, my director Tanya Mobley, she came up with what we were going to do, and because I knew Jordan, if I tried to be in character as the Dame and even talk about it, it was just going to take me out of my zone, and I was going to get emotional, and it was going to get me back to being Scott and out of the character. So we dedicated the voiceover introduction of me as the Dame from the booth. We said it was dedicated. I dedicated the show in his memory. And then I had found a picture of Barry Humphries from one of the big programs from when I saw his tours. And I brought that. And at the end, when I did my curtain call, I thanked everyone. And I said, I just want to again, and I held up the picture of Barry Humphries. And I said, I want to thank my mentor and friend. And I looked up to heaven. And then it was thunderous applause. It was thunderous applause when I heard that the show was dedicated to him. And I got a standing ovation that night because I think the spirit, either literally or figuratively, because of what had happened, and I think I took that sadness and grief, and I just was on fire. I mean, not that I don't always want to do a good show, obviously, but I think there was something else that kicked into me, and I really just had fun, and I had a lot of energy, and it was a good crowd, and it was a really great show to go out with, and people were very generous of compliments and kudos. And really funny story, because you set it up at the beginning of the show that you couldn't get to me because there's all these people outside where I'm greeting and meeting people, and I was getting a lot of photos, and there was these 2 men that were standing on the sidewalk and pointing at me down below. And I thought, oh, they're gonna want to get a selfie. They're gonna and so one of the men came down to me and sort of made his way through the crowd and said, "Can I get a picture?" And I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I only do pictures with people who have seen the show." And then he said, I didn't notice it at first, but then he said, "Oh, please," I'm not going to do the accent because I'll butcher it without prep, but it was clear he was very Australian because he sounded like Crocodile Dundee. And and he said, "I'm from Australia. I'm an Aussie, and we just lost one of our greatest stars. Please, can I have a picture?" And when he said that, I said, "Oh, absolutely." As the Dame, I said, "You're from Australia too. Of course, Possum will have a picture." And he was so grateful. But again, Jordan, what are the odds that I get out of a show and there's a true Aussie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I don't believe in black magic, but but I sort of believe in karma and the universe, and things happen for a reason. And that's sort of been this whole journey. So there was a very, very long-winded answer to your 3 questions.
To my 3 questions. No, I think that that's amazing. I think that that's so amazing. Again, like I said, it's almost like the Dame chose Barry and the Dame chose you. Like you kind of just have been like kind of on this journey without necessarily saying this is exactly the journey I want to be on, but it's like all of these things kind of happen. And what do they say? Like luck is what preparation meets opportunity. It's like, and you've been prepared for them, and then when these opportunities happen, you're there, and you're just like on this really cool ride.
Yeah, and I think the message, and I really never thought about this. I never thought there had to be a message. I just think I'm suddenly on a radio show, and I thank you again. And I think because your show is all about artistry and artists, and people listening care about that topic, I think that it's important for anyone. I don't care if you're an artist or whatever your passion is like you said, prep and then take advantage of every opportunity. Because again, had I not, did I need to do the talent show? No, but it seemed appealing. Like, oh, if I win, I could have my own show at the Grand. And that was great, but what was more important was the stage manager sent me that ad about the contest, because had
Totally.
that, yeah, so had I not, because I don't get playbill, I didn't even know that. I wasn't tracking Dame Edna Barry Humphries enough to even know that there was a new show. I probably learned about it once it opened, but I didn't even know there was a show in rehearsal with Michael Feinstein, let alone a contest. So again, one little decision, gut, change your mind, don't go for it, could have changed my entire trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah. So so the show closed. It's really chilling. Like the show closed on like the same day that he passed away. The So what's next? Where do you see like happening next? Are you just kind of like waiting for the next opportunity to happen, or do you see yourself like, okay, now I want to take this character and go here or do this? Like what's next for you?
Well, it's a good question, Jordan, and I've been very reflective about it. I have already shows contracted for the fall at the venues, more local venues, where I do a full, unlike what you saw, I do a full 2 hour show in a much more kind of theatrical theater in the area, the tri-state area,
Mhm.
with intermission, and I have a change of outfit, yada yada yada. So I have some of those shows contracted, as I said, but now, unfortunately, because the real Dame Barry Humphries has passed, it's more. I need to think about the concept of a tribute show and honoring the real Dame and Barry Humphries, and maintaining still what I do as a show, but sort of repackaging it as a tribute to the
Right.
an evening with Dame Edna, tribute to Barry Humphries, yada yada yada. So I'm trying to toy with that. I'm Cabaret theater was awesome. Winning a bistro was awesome. Being nominated for a Mac Award was awesome. And all the people I met now were all Facebook friends and wonderful, wonderful people. And I love Don't Tell Mama. Unfortunately, the cabaret world, as opposed to where I've dabbled mostly in these theaters in the area, and Vegas, I was there because of convention. I had a gig in Sedona for a while, but these are the theaters that usually contract me, which is a nice contract and sustains me.
Well, there's no money in cabaret.
No, exactly. Well, I didn't want to say it.
It's really
You said it,
no.
Jordan.
There's no listen. I swear, like that's I came up in cabaret. In fact, the first Don't Tell Mama, I used to do shows at Don't Tell Mama. Like when I was like a young pup, just coming up in New York City. Don't Tell Mamas was like my spot where I did all of my shows. But there's no money in cabaret, and at the end of the day, it really is kind of like a mutual appreciation society. Like it's really kind of a small community. It's kind of
Yes.
like what you said about like when you got to, you're like, oh, so like Broadway is really no different than the rest of the theater world. It's just more money and bigger. It's like it's a small. There's not a you're not gonna make a living playing Don't Tell Mamas.
Well, exactly. And since you opened the door to that, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to be insulting to my friends in Dear Cindy Meyer and the Don't Tell Mama or any of the cabaret theaters. I, for me, like if I lived in New York, if I was 20 something, if I had not taken the safe route of a full time career outside of the arts, if I had moved to New York when I was 20 something and experienced cabaret the way I have, and the gracious welcome and the awards. But then again, when I was 20 something, I wasn't doing the Dame. So
Right. So you
they,
probably would have had a completely different experience in the totally.
exactly. And so, but at this point of my life, with my home and my friends and family, I don't, and really just my age, I don't feel like the hustle and bustle of living in New York City. And no disrespect to it, I love New York City and I grew up on Long Island, but it's just not what I want to do. But so going to Don't Tell Mama, yeah, there's no money. Plus, I'm spending money because tolls alone each way
You
are
got to get up there. You got to do this. You got to pay
yeah,
for. Well, I guess you don't
parking.
have like a pianist or whatever, but like
No, I don't have to do that.
it's nothing but expenses, and you got to pay for your
Well,
postcards, and you got to do.
exactly.
I get it.
So yeah, you get it. You get it. Your listeners get it. What I would love, and we'll see. I'm in contact with some of the people I met at the bistros, and it's all about, just like Broadway, just like any other arts. It's who you know and connections and networking, and meeting the right people. I would love my goal, my fantasy, so to speak, dream, as it were. I would love to be produced in an off-Broadway venue that is theatrical with a stage and a curtain and an auditorium and do a tribute show. But again, that would take somebody who says, hey, I think this would sell and I'm going to put money in it and I'm going to advertise it. And yeah, then I could stay with friends or family for a week or two or a month in the metropolitan
No,
area.
you make the producer pay for your hotel.
Well,
Have
I
you
do.
learned nothing, Scott? Nothing in all these years.
Well, see, this interview itself is serendipitous because you're giving me this great advice and you're telling me you're like an agent. No, Scott, you get the producer to put in the hotel. So here again, you just never know what, because of course Jose sent me the email and it was lovely. And of course I'm gonna do the radio show because it sounds like a great thing. And I was so excited to talk to Jordan or Jose on the phone. And then of course to meet you and to know that you came to the show. And again, had you not come to the show, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We wouldn't even have this conversation because it wouldn't have even been on my radar. Totally.
So we'll see.
Totally.
Meanwhile, I'm going to spend the summer because I don't have any gigs currently in the summer. And I'm going to been doing it since COVID started to wane a bit. I've been sending out promo and kits and yada yada to theaters, and I'm going to do that. But maybe now, I hate to say capitalize on someone's passing, on a genius's passing, but there isn't going to be any more Barry Humphries and Dame Edna. Just like there's no more Elvis, there's no more Marilyn, there's no more Michael Jackson, but people want to see those people, and that's why there's these shows, you know.
Exactly. And so I'm going to say this because we actually only have a couple minutes left. I could talk to you all afternoon, but my other career advice for you. Cameo. You need to be on Cameo.
Okay, I'm gonna have to.
Do you know Cameo?
I don't. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Cameo is a site like, so you basically pay celebrities and they'll like make individualized greetings for you. So it's like, oh, I love, the Real Housewife of Delaware, and so you can pay her $50 and she'll write she'll do a video greeting for your grandmother's birthday. There's enough, like what you do, and you're the honorary understudy. I think that honestly, you could make him enough money on Cameo to like fund your own week off Broadway.
Well, you're very kind, Possum, very kind.
No, seriously, check out Cameo. I think that would be a great next step for you. And I think it would also kind of expand your brand. And again, it's not about, profiting off of somebody's death. It's because you're honoring this person. And you're the honorary understudy. You have literally the man said, use my material.
Right, that is true.
You know what I mean? So, oh my goodness. Well, listen to me. I really would love to keep talking, but unfortunately, they have to go like to commercial or something. And that really bothers me. But I guess that's what pays the bills. When you're next in New York or when you're next in Las Vegas, please, please, please look me up. I would so love to have a drink, have a coffee, and continue the conversation. I think you're very, very fascinating. I think you're a wonderful entertainer. I really, really enjoyed the show. And I'm so glad that you spent a little time with us.
Well, again, I'm honored. I thank you because I would love to chat with you further. You're so knowledgeable. You're so embracing of the arts and generous of your own spirit as well. So I really, really appreciate this opportunity to have a chat with you. And I'd love to chat.
Absolutely. Where can our listeners find you on the web, on the interwebs? We can't find you on Cameo yet.
Yeah.
But where else can we find you?
You can find me at www.dameunderstudy.com.
Awesome.
And you can go to Facebook and just search Dame Understudy, and then you can watch all these clips. You can see the interview with Barry Humphries when I won the contest and all my COVID stuff, my sampler, all that fun stuff. You can watch me for a long time, Jordan.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait. You all, and listeners, you all check him out and listen and check it out as well. And hopefully he'll be coming to Cameo, so all of you possums can get personalized videos to him. And thank you all for tuning in with our guest, Scott F. Mason. also known as the honorary understudy of Dame Edna Average. Please tune in next week for another episode of Showtime with Jordan Von Hazel and Friends, right here on Hot 702.5 FM. And don't forget, you can download the Hot 702.5 FM app and listen to the show in real time. And please check out hot702.5fm.com. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.